Hi, this is Victor from the Victory Training Podcast, and today we have Matt with us. Matt has done one-on-one training with me for, I don't know, how long?
I think it's going on a year, maybe 6 months to a year.
Yeah,
well,
less than a year.
what's funny is that we were talking for 2 years, and I stopped in with you one day, and I said, "Hey, I'm interested," and then you and I went back and forth in text message for 6 months.
Can I give props on the follow-through?
Yeah, the follow-through, man, was absolutely fantastic.
I kept checking in.
And then, I think, you know what it was? It was December of 23 that we first touched base, and then we were going back and forth.
You walked by the storefront.
I walked by.
Yeah.
Yep. Popped my head in. You were training somebody else, and
yeah.
I talked about that I wanted to pick up one-on-one training again, and then I had your number. We were texting back and forth for a trial session, and then I think it was like June of last year or May, so it's 7 or 8 months at this point.
Me like
of us back and forth. Yeah. So yeah, follow through is very good. A+ on that.
Thank you. You know, we never actually talked about that. I'm glad that.
I know. In hindsight, it's like, have I been working out with you longer than we were actually trying to get together, or which one's longer at this point?
I'm not sure. Okay, so you're relatively new to Chicago, right? Like, it's been a few years. How many years?
I am. Yeah, moved here a couple years ago. Was long distance with my now fiance for many years, and then after COVID, I was kind of tired of traveling back and forth, so settled down here with her and have been here ever since.
So in Boston, you were a
studio owner operator,
and also you ran cycling classes as well.
I did. I was a star spin instructor, though I'm saying that only because if my former business partner listens to this, he'll laugh.
Okay.
It was always kind of a bromance that we had, and we always wanted to be, teach a better class than the other. So, so I grew up in New Jersey. I wasn't always into fitness. In high school, I started running cross country because my sister did, and that was my first exposure to fitness. And I actually won the coaches award for my freshman year in high school because I was like most improved. I think my 5K in high school was a 40-minute 5K the first time I ran it, and then I got it down to like 25 minutes. So I really loved that, and that was kind of when I was hooked. That's when I realized I tend to be an anxious person, and that's when I realized that like exercise and running was a really good relief for me to kind of calm down. And if I could find a way to do that every day or every other day, it would really help me mentally.
Absolutely. That's so true.
Yeah, and then I moved up to Boston in 2007, and spent 15 years there, and was working out with a personal trainer for a number of years, and that was working well for me. I had a tech consulting company on the side. Not on the side. That was my main thing at the time, and in 2014, I actually stumbled into a spin studio that was opening, and met the two owners, and I said, I really want to be involved in this. This is great. They were brand new, and I took it on as a side project, and it turned into something more than that over time. But very quickly, I'm one of those people where when I get into something, I get into it. And so, it started with just being interested in, being involved, and then I started learning how to be an instructor, and then I started teaching classes. We were a single location for a couple of years, and I was teaching classes 2-3 times a week. Probably one of the best memories of my life, best experiences, like 2014 to 2017, 2018 or so. I was in the best shape of my life. Literally all I was doing was cardio, probably not a ton of strength training, which in hindsight, I wish I had mixed more of that in. I think it's important to have a balance.
Yeah.
We grew the studio to 5 locations, and it still exists today, but I moved on in 2020 to other things.
Yeah. Wow. And then when you were doing this part, did you have another job? When you were just like 2 or 3 times a week?
Yeah, so I was juggling the spin studio, both teaching and helping to operate the studios with my tech consulting business on the side. So I was doing both. That was, we're going on 8-9 years ago, and even longer than that, actually, almost 10 years ago. And I had a lot more energy back then to juggle things. I would say, I used to pride myself back then on saying, I love working 80 hours a week for myself, so I don't have to work 40 hours a week for someone else.
Yeah.
These days, I'm like, I love one thing to focus on. My ability to juggle multiple things has, I don't have as much ability to do that now as I used to.
Yeah. That's tiresome.
But it was a great experience back then to do both things. I could, work my tech job during the day, go teach a spin class or two at night, help with the spin studio operations. And, especially once we grew, I mean, it's a lot different running one location, which is how we started, and then growing to 2, growing to 3, growing to 5. The team gets much bigger. You start taking things a little bit more seriously. Sure. There's a lot of, just, different strategy when you have that many locations. So, I think I enjoyed the early days more. I'm sure as a single location gym owner, you're probably enjoying the lifestyle side of it. I can't speak for you, but if once you get to 3, 4, 5 locations, it starts becoming a different type of business to run.
Yeah, no, I can imagine it'd be a lot different.
Yeah.
I think one piece we're missing is this is also how you met Sarah. Is this true? Right? Didn't she take your?
I would love to say that. I definitely had some relationships during my spin instructing days that I met where, it was somebody that I met at the studio. But no, actually, Sarah and I met skydiving. I'm actually kidding. We didn't meet skydiving. No, we met on online dating.
I thought she took your class.
She did.
Okay.
She did. So it's actually kind of funny.
But like early in the relationship, right?
Early in the relationship.
Okay.
So it was funny. I remember my first date with her. I was teaching a spin class, and I remember showering afterwards, being really nervous. I ran to the restaurant we were having our first date at, which was 2 or 3 doors down. And just as typical Matt, always running behind, as I'm sure you know, I never show up on time to any of our workouts. I showed up all sweaty. I sat down and was like, "Oh wow, this girl is actually really pretty," which made me sweat even more. And I used it as an excuse of like, "Oh, I just got done teaching my spin class," and I was like, "Oh, you really should take my spin class." And so for the next couple of months, I really wanted her to come take it, and she was in residency at the time, so I can't really blame her. She was just working 80 hours a week.
Sure.
And but finally, I got her to come take my class, and she loved. I think it was an NSYNC themed class, which is one of her favorite artists, and. From there, I think that's the reason we're still together is that I was an awesome spin instructor, and she was like, wow, he was so good that I have to stay with now. I don't know, but yeah.
I'm gonna keep the story in my head that
she took my class.
She took your class and fell in love there. That'll be
that would have been
the story that hits the big screen.
I will say though, one of the related to that, one of the best benefits of just, as I'm sure you can relate to this, being a fitness instructor or just being somebody involved in the fitness community is the people that thank you, and the people that come up and say, because of you, my life is different. And I remember one of the last classes I ever taught. So I had some jaw surgery in 2019, 2020, 2021, which is actually the reason I stopped teaching. I'd love to get back into it again in the future. But I remember one of my last classes, somebody came up to me and she said, your class is awesome. I always look forward to it. I forget the exact word she used, but it really made a difference in her day to day.
Yeah.
And I still remember that. Even 6, 7 years later, I still remember it was one of my last classes. And if I ever get back into teaching again, which I would like to do at some point, that kind of memory, those kind of memories are one of the reasons I'd want to do it. It's fun making playlists. It's fun getting the energy up in the class, but the one-on-one, the people that come up to you and express appreciation, or you can tell, they're coming to take your class and they really look forward to it.
Yeah.
Makes a difference.
No, I know exactly what you're saying. I remember the first time with Maria, she was right on the steps, she's walking out the door, and as she's walking out the door, she turns around, looks at me and goes, when I come here, she said, I feel better after I come here.
Yeah.
And the amount of fireworks in my heart, I was so happy. I was and then that moment, I don't think I've ever even said this out loud. It's kind of crazy. But that moment gave me purpose. Mm-hmm. Made me understand. Okay, this is what I'm chasing. Mm-hmm. I want people to feel good when they leave. If they feel good when they leave, job well done. I did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, 100%.
I mean, that's 100%. The hardest part. I don't think anybody has ever come to a workout and said, "I wish I didn't go."
Yeah.
Nobody's walking out of here saying, "I wish I hadn't done that."
Yeah.
I mean, maybe, but I doubt it. Right. It's really about getting them in the door. And right now, if you think about it, there's a lot of people out there that might be, it's January or now it's February, but they're going to the gym. Maybe they're trying things on their own. maybe not seeing the progress that they're looking for, and they kind of need that extra guidance and that extra kick, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's about getting them over the mental hump of, no matter how bad of a day you're having, or whether you're dealing with depression, and I'm not an expert on this, but I can tell from personal experience, it's like there's something about just getting the energy to go to the gym and get a good workout in, whether it's personal training or if you've got like your small group training, and just it really, at least for me and for many people I've talked to, really makes a difference that before you start working out, you don't really expect it to do. Even Sarah, take Sarah, right? So Sarah, was not big into working out when we first met, and now I really get her to come to our sessions as often as we can. She did yoga, but I think, in the beginning it was, me kind of saying, hey, let's go to Victor, let's go, okay. Now she looks forward to it. Now she's like, are we working out with Victor this Saturday?
Yeah.
Are we working out? So it does take some time, but over time you really realize the benefits. And I think the thing I like about your model is that, you have the smaller groups, right? So I feel like the boutique fitness stuff, the kind of thing that I did, it's, 50 people in a room, 40 people in a room. You've got the one-on-one, but you've also got the one-on-two, one-on-three, and it can maybe help keep costs down for people while also getting that personal attention. Yeah. I think that's a really good model, and I'm sure people really value the one-on-one aspect of it, even if they're also working out with someone else.
For sure, I think like one of the biggest things is like obviously it does save money, but the big part of it, I'm speaking on the small group and the semi-private stuff, is because it saves money, it increases frequency.
Yeah.
And then now what's one session per week in a lot of places is 3 sessions.
Yeah.
So now they can afford to do 3 sessions, and the frequency matters a lot when you're talking about weightlifting and exercise.
It's a nice hybrid approach between your options of either I'm going to go take a group class where I'm not going to get any personal attention. There might be 30, 40, 50 people in there, or I have to do one-on-one, which even scheduling might be hard for that, right? There's only so many one-on-ones you can do at peak times.
Yes.
But then, it's like the small group is kind of a nice hybrid, right? And I think that more people should consider it. I think it's a really good model that gets you the personal attention of one-on-one with the maybe affordability, the scheduling aspect of it of a group class.
100%. 100%.
But anyway, so
I would say, Matt, I'm hiring. So
are you?
No. I might be after that. You explained it pretty well. Yeah, I might.
All right. Well, we're done. No. It's funny. So one thing I didn't mention is that in 2017, as I was working on these spin studios, which later added boot camp, so it was cycle and boot camp, I started realizing that a lot of the tech skills that I was contributing to the business, would make sense for other studios. And so I actually started yet another side project. Again, I don't recommend it. Maximum 2. I was probably up to 5 at this point of side project. Started a company that offered this software to other boutique fitness studios, and it was completely rewritten. It was a completely separate project. But we started building up some of the software into products that we could offer other boutique fitness studios or gyms like yourself, and that actually became my main thing in 2020, and I've actually been working on that ever since. So it's funny how like you get into something, you get into an industry, and from that industry can be born other projects related to that industry. And we do SaaS software for boutique fitness studios, and that's kind of been my main thing that I've been doing since COVID.
Yeah, no, it's a wild journey.
Indeed.
That you've been on, or that you are on.
Indeed.
As far as like the journey with fitness and exercise. Mm-hmm. Now, you said that you weren't doing a lot of weight training when you were kind of like in, the big part of doing all those spin classes and things like that, and running the spin studio.
Yeah.
When did you start weight training?
The problem is that I yo-yo, and I'll admit it, And I think the reason is because I kind of go all in on one thing, and then when that one thing stops, I don't have something to fall back on. And that's something that I've learned. So when I was running in high school, and then doing some stuff in college, but I was probably I was pretty out of shape in my early 20s, and I had really high blood pressure issues, whatever. I moved to Boston, and that change, I started running again. I started running 5Ks. I found like a doctor that I really liked who was giving me great advice. And, I lost weight. I was in best shape of my life, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And then I was working out with a personal trainer, but then he left, so I had to find another one, and I took like a small break. And then I started working out with another personal trainer. Then I started the spin studio, and I stopped working out with the personal trainer so I could focus on doing just cardio. Yeah. And I would say for 5, 6, 7 years I did just cardio. So if I look at pictures and look at how I felt back then, I realized that I felt like I was in good shape, but by not getting the combination of cardio plus strength training, I was my blood pressure was great, but I was missing something.
Yeah.
And so after I left the spin studios, and after during COVID, I actually put a bunch of weight back on, and I moved to Chicago, and I hadn't yet found someone like you. And it's funny, like Chicago, I miss the mountains. There's no mountains out here, and like a lot of times my stress relief in a day would be to go for a hike, or get outdoors and do something. And I realized the winters, it's really hard to run outside. So I think because what I wanted to do for fitness, the activation energy to get there was harder than it normally would be. I wasn't working out as much as I had wanted to. So to answer your question, maybe 2021, 2022, I started doing some like Zoom personal training sessions with a personal trainer that I knew in Boston. That worked a little bit, but I wasn't really seeing the results. I mean, I don't think I've said this to you before, but really when I started seeing results again, since I left the spin studios in 2019, 2020, and I'd kind of, plateaued and gained weight again, really when I started coming down again was when I started working out with you back in June. Wow. And I think it was really just the perfect storm of, in my head, I was like, I need to do something other than cardio. I was going for runs, I was walking on my treadmill, but I need to do something new. And walking down the street that day, peeking my head into here, meeting you, and even then we had the 6 months of follow-ups. Yeah. But I mean, once we've started it, we've been consistent.
I agree, yeah.
And the best advice that I can give someone who is like looking to pick something like this up is have a plan for when the consistency that you're doing stops. Because it doesn't, like I'm not necessarily saying that people are going to work out with you for 6 months and then stop. They might go on an extended vacation. People move. 100%. Things change. And so I don't really want to say that fitness needs to be a lifestyle. You don't have to be obsessed with it. You don't have to drink the Kool-Aid. But, it is good to make a conscious decision that you want, a hybrid of strength and cardio. That I think that's important for anyone. You would know better than I would. But a hybrid of strength training and cardio. And that you have a plan for what will happen if your day-to-day plan gets interrupted. Because anytime I look back at the last 20 years of my life, whenever I felt like I got out of shape, it wasn't because I wanted to stop, it was because something happened that made my current plan that had been working, like, stop. And like my jaw surgeries in 2019, 2020 took me off my feet. By the time I was done recovering from those, it's like, I don't have a plan anymore. What do I do? Yeah. And so my plan was to do nothing.
Right.
And then meeting you got me right back into things again.
Yeah. No, that's a valid point. I think you're right about that. Like, life happens. It's
just
it does. The way it goes. And like, you do have to have, but I think also what you're speaking on is having experience, right? Like, you've like gone through it already. So you kind of know, okay, this is where it gets tough. I need to have a plan B, so to say, of how to, kind of bounce back into it, or what do I need to do to keep it consistent? And one thing that I'll say to that is, I think it's mindset, because what we tend to do is once we fall off, we want to just kind of get right back into it. So say you were working out 5 days a week, and then whatever happens in life, and now you haven't really worked out it's been a struggle, and like for 3 months, and now you're at a point where you're not even really working out at all. Understanding that committing to a realistic frequency throughout the week doesn't have to be the 5 times again.
Right.
It can be 2 times again.
Right.
Right. And you can
Just
have like
doing
a standard.
something. Yep.
Yeah, and I'm like, sometimes I'll set like you know, like a specific bar that I have to hit, but it's a low one, but like one that I have to hit. Like, so like if I fall off, it's like, okay, I'm falling off, cool, but like I have to lift, let's say 3 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then if 3 times isn't working, I have to lift 2 times a week. But like I don't really accept myself not lifting more than
Right.
once. I'll push.
But
that.
because you have the experience, though, you know what's
Yeah.
gonna. And I'm the same way as
Yeah.
is. I hope I never stop. I mean,
Right.
I've really enjoyed working out with you, and,
Yeah.
and I hope that I never stop again. But you know, I know at this point that like I have to keep a pattern going. If I stop a pattern for long enough, it's hard to get that activation energy back.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest thing is you know, educating people that maybe aren't, you know, working out that much, or maybe they're doing their treadmill runs or at a gym.
Mm-hmm.
They don't fully understand the benefits, and this is actually coming from integrity. This is not coming from a sales pitch.
Mm-hmm.
They don't understand the benefits of like a victory training, right? They don't understand like that it doesn't have to be a one-on-one thing. It doesn't have to be, you know, unmaintainable from a budget perspective.
Yeah.
You have these like small group options that are going to give you a more targeted workout,
Yeah.
but also you've got somebody like you that's going to keep people inspired, or your, you know, the other trainers to keep people inspired to show up and actually work out. But even then, you know, I think it still takes a couple months, unfortunately, right? Like you'll
Yeah.
get somebody that starts and they might get into it in the first month or 2 or 3. But you know, it's funny. I remember back in the Spin Studio days, we used to talk about, you know, conversion, retention, and churn.
Sure.
And you run those numbers, and it's like, you know, if somebody, you know, you know, you have the people that take a class and they're like immediately into it. But there's those people you've got to nurture, and it's not that you're trying to sell them something. It's really about the fact that they're on this new journey and they need to figure out, you know, how to go from, okay, I'm not taking any classes, to okay, now I'm taking maybe 3 to 4 per week. It's like a sine wave. It's like there's some ups and downs before maybe they get into a consistent pattern.
Yes.
But again, I don't think anybody's ever said, "Wow, I'm working out 3 or 4 times a week. I wish I wasn't doing this." You know, but it's hard to get into that pattern, and I think that's what people that aren't working out right now need to accept. It might be a little challenging in the beginning,
Yeah.
but once you're into that pattern, it's something that you'll hopefully be able to keep for a very long time.
Man, I agree 100%. I always say that when you start getting into fitness and getting into an exercise routine, especially if you're new to it, like one of the first things that you need to do is you need to accept the fact that failure is a part of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you got to embrace it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even just the idea of like physically lifting weights, right? Like I lift a lot of times when I work out, at least one of my lifts, I do it until I can't anymore. Not that it's like so crazy that I'm doing like some sort of insane thing or something like that, but like I go and then I try it again and again and again, or I'll try to go for 10 and I only get 8, you know, but like I don't let that like demoralize me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that's part of it. You know, like the failure is part of the progress. It's like a sign of the progress. Like you gotta just keep on pushing and moving forward, you know? And it's like but most things aren't like that. So like when you hit that moment of failure, for some people that's really hard for them to continue. They're kind of like, oh, I'm not good at this, or I really wanted to come into the gym and lift this weight. Like I had in my head, like today's the day that I'm gonna bench press the most that I've ever bench pressed.
Their 1 rep max is not what they want.
Yeah, and then it's not,
Yeah.
and then they like just are so broken by it that it's like hard for them, like that'll break them. You know, it's just like, man, that's just the way it goes.
You got to just keep walking.
You gotta
just
walking,
keep putting one foot in front of the other. Keep showing up. It's actually kind of funny. This leads me to a question I have for you. I mean, earlier in the podcast, I was talking about a combination of strength training and cardio, and the thing that I found for me over the years is just cardio. While it helps me maybe mentally from feeling like I'm strong and feeling happy with who I am, I really need a hybrid, right? So what do you think when people say, okay, maybe there's a lot of people out there that are doing cardio only, like myself when I used to do it. What do you say to somebody like that when you're trying to convince them to introduce strength training? Because you do hear, oh, I don't want to get big, I don't want to get muscular. But like as I've learned over the years, it's really not about that, right? You can do strength training without changing your aesthetics? Or, I mean, you're the expert on this. I'd be curious to know what your thoughts are.
I like a few things come to mind. I think one thing is you're not gonna, the getting bigger part, yes, you're gonna put some muscle on, but actually getting physically bigger, having to buy new clothes or you look super huge, that's gonna have to be so intentional that you'd have to want to do that. The fact that you're saying you don't want to do it, you're not gonna do it. Number one. Number two, there's people that really badly want to do it and can't accomplish it. They want to get that super big because they don't have the discipline and the nutrition. And that's really what's going to make your muscles really grow and get bigger. So the idea that you're going to just uncontrollably start growing and have this Hulk kind of situation is just not, I wish that was the case, but that's not how it works. So that would be number one. The second thing that I would say is the benefits of it, the reasons why, that's the fear portion, right? But the benefits of it is that you're reducing joint pain. You're reducing, and say you don't have joint pain right now, right? That's not something that I have. But you, as you age, which we all are, you will. Mm-hmm. And this is going to help you with injury prevention. It's going to help you age better. It's going to help you age slower, is what I should say. And those would be the two main things that I would say as far as weightlifting goes. And then in your day to day, you're gonna feel it and you're gonna see it. I know you see it in when you're doing cardio and things like that. Say you're going up a flight of stairs or something, you might feel hey, I wasn't as out of breath, and those are rewarding things. But there's other stuff too that you do throughout the day that you may not even notice because it's always there, right? But when you go to that bottom drawer to pull out the cast iron skillet.
Yep.
Right, and you got to kind of it's hard to do, and when you're lifting weights and things those kind of movements throughout the day, you'll feel the difference, and it's rewarding. But at the end of the day, it's just injury prevention, and then there's all sorts of studies out about how the more muscle you have on your body, the better your brain's operating.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And as you and better your body's functioning generally. And then the last piece that I think would be most motivating and inspiring to a person that's asking me that question, because a person that's doing a lot of cardio, they're probably trying to burn fat. Not always, but I would say at least 75% of the time. The more muscle you have on your body, the higher rate of fat that you're burning. Because the muscle's going to eat up that
even just walking around, not even necessarily when you're walking.
Because your body is working to keep that muscle on. So that's where the diet does come in, and you do want to eat that, and that's where you hear about having protein shakes.
Yep.
And doing things like that, because you want to make sure that you maintain the muscle that you're putting on, and as you maintain that muscle, that's really what's going to help turn your body into a fat burning machine. Well,
one final comment I have on this is it's funny, when I first started getting involved in the cycling studio in 2013, 2014, everything was about cardio. There was a spin studio, it was 50 bikes, that's it. Or, you had maybe a rowing studio, or, a lot has changed. In 2019, 2020, especially during COVID, people started working out at home, right? They started having to do things that they could do at home. A lot of people didn't have a spin bike at home. They didn't have a rower at home. So they started doing maybe body weight workouts, or, they get some free weights and they do some free weight workouts. And it's interesting that I think because of COVID, the industry has shifted, and now you see a lot more of this hybrid, right? You see a lot more of this, I'm going to a studio, I'm going to a boutique fitness studio, I'm gonna take a class that is a combination of strength training and cardio.
Yes.
Or like your workouts, for example. You've probably always been strength training, but it's hybrid too, like throwing me on the skier over there, in between sets. I think I'm not an expert on this specifically, but I would say the hybrid model seems like it's the best approach for most people.
100%.
And at least for me, I've really enjoyed the fact that I focus on both now.
Yeah, it's the most functional approach.
Yeah.
Because you need both. That's at the end of the day, that's the truth. It's not one or the other. And I think that's true in most cases, and in other categories of life as well. It's not always just, it's almost never just one thing. And it's a mix.
And I will say this, because I think that, as I've learned, a lot of people think this is really limited to women, and I want to break that trend. I think people should also not be scared of looping in physical therapy if you need it, right? Yeah. So strength training, cardio, whatever. And recently, I've been doing pelvic floor physical therapy, which I honestly, like with the work I've been doing with you combined with the pelvic floor physical therapy, it's been night and day for me. And like, I think there's a lot of stereotypes around, oh, if you have issues, it's like, it's cliche, cliche is the wrong word, but oh, that's not for me. Like, I don't need to do, but it's, I found a physical therapist and they've been helping me with pelvic floor issues. And I'm like, this is great.
Yeah.
And so, I'm admitting that because I think people new to fitness, like maybe they make assumptions that they walk in the door and they're like, oh, that person's so much stronger than me, or that person's so much in better shape than me. You don't really know what's going on with them. And they were in your shoes at one point too.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at the stories you hear when you're at the gym, or you come to Victory Training, you talk to the people that are next to you. Just everybody's got their own story and their own background and their own journey, and So
I just want to go back to what we were talking about earlier when you talked about a person that does a lot of cardio, maybe a lot of running, but wants to be convinced on weightlifting.
Yeah.
Another benefit is allowing yourself to be able to run for a longer period of time. Because I can't tell you how many people have come to me and signed up for personal training because they can't run anymore. Because their knees have given out on them, their hips have given out on them, their ankles. And they're like, I can't do it anymore.
They don't have the foundation.
And they're like, I need to find something else to do because I can't run anymore. That's my love, but I can't do it. So if you start this hybrid approach early, then you'll be able to do what you love longer. And that's really probably the best piece of advice that I would give them.
Yeah,
I had to think about it.
No, it's fine. Yeah. I mean, they say everything in moderation, right? So
Yes.
it probably holds true for almost everything, including fitness. So
100%.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thanks for having me on today.
Matt, thank you so much.
This is awesome. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you next time.